Good afternoon. Welcome to the Escambia County Tourist Development Council meeting. Today is February 18th. It is approximately 3 o'clock p.m. Danielle, was this meeting publicly noticed?
Yes, in the Pensacola News Journal on February 13th.
Great, thank you. If you would, please call the roll.
Ashley Hoffberger,
Present.
James Reeves, Shirley Cronley, David Bayer,
Here.
Matish Patel,
Here.
Charles Bayer, Jennifer Bayer, Brad Molinex, Jason Nicholson.
Great, thank you so much. We have a quorum, so this meeting is now called to order. First item, I'd like to welcome and introduce our two newest, I was about to say board members, but council members, excuse me. Brad Molinex and Jason Nicholson, welcome. If you guys want to take a minute, introduce yourself to everyone or pass, whatever you prefer.
I believe I'll pass. It's an honor to
All right, thank you.
It's an honor to serve the citizens of Escambia County among such talented professionals as yourself. Really an
Great.
honor.
Thank you. Brad? Great, thank you. And so when you want to speak, make sure you press the talk button, and when you get a light on your microphone, it's hot. But thank you. All right, and welcome again. Next item is review and approval of the agenda. It has been distributed. You have it before you. Are there any additions anyone would like to make? Hearing none, we'll accept a motion to approve as presented. Is there such a motion? We have a motion from Mr. Reeves. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from the commissioner. Is there any debate or discussion? Objection? Hearing none, please show it adopted. Thank you. Next item is public forum. We have a couple of signed up speakers. If you would like to speak and you haven't signed up, please see Danielle. But we first will start with Lindsay Thompson. Oh, okay. Well, then we will skip to, I'm guessing you are Sharon Gobert. Come on down, please. Welcome.
Good afternoon.
If you could please put the microphone in front. Thank you. And
Better?
introduce yourself for the
Yes.
record. Thank you.
Sharon Gobert. I'm a 25-year Escambia County resident, and I've been involved with the Greater Pensacola Figure Skating Club for almost 13 years now. As a result, I've had a front row seat to the many missed opportunities for ice sports to bring tourism and other events that would benefit our community. On behalf of the over 500 skaters and players currently participating in ice sports, we're requesting the opportunity to share our own stories, to be able to show you firsthand the potential economic impact our sports could have on the community if we had a year-round sheet of ice with a predictable schedule. Our organizations are unable to host any events which would bring tourism dollars to town due to our current contract constraints. No competitions, test sessions, games, tournaments, friendlies, camps, no nothing. As previously mentioned, we routinely receive tourism inquiries from skaters who need daily ice when they're traveling. And these inquiries will start to skyrocket in a couple of weeks because of spring break and summer. As a result of the lack of ice here in town, these tourists decide to go elsewhere in Florida communities that have ice and beaches. If they had planned to visit their grandparents, they either cut their visit short, delay, or cancel their plans when the kids need the ice to be able to continue their training for competition. There is no ice rink competition for almost 250 miles. We use Pelham, Columbus, Georgia, and Jacksonville for home rinks for hosting and training when there's no ice here. We would love to be able to put heads in beds in Escambia County. The Florida Interclub Council, U.S. Figure Skating, Learn to Skate USA Ice Sports Industry, plus the hockey organizations stand ready to host events here. We just need a nice facility to support it. As a point of information, we have 3 days of ice this week, next Monday, and then we go 40-plus days with no ice during our season. We hope to have April ice, but that's dependent on whether the Ice Flyers make it to the playoffs this year. So this isn't a schedule that's conducive to tourism or local use. In addition to events our organizations could host, there are so many more opportunities. For instance, did you know Texas Roadhouse annually hosts a meat cutting competition for their butchers that work for them. And you know where they have those? At an ice rink, because they put the tables on top of the ice to keep the constant room temperature to preserve the meat. How fun would that be to have here in town? Also becoming very popular are the weekend and week-long adult-only residential skating camps that include add-ons for a full tourist experience. And these people are spending big bucks to do these things. Supported by the Florida Inter-Club Council, the City of Palms Figure Skating Club just hosted a small early season competition at the Fort Myers Stadium, which is a municipal complex with one sheet of ice. Approximately 425 skaters, plus their family members, coaches, and officials attended, and these people all stayed in the hotels for 2 to 3 nights, something we could easily do here if we had the ability. We're just asking that you give us the chance to share these details and more. It's hard to tell you what we can do in 3 minutes, but if we could get a few minutes of your time one-on-one, we would greatly appreciate that. And if you've not had the chance to see amateur ice sports in action in Pensacola, we have our last Monday class coming up from 5 to 6. So if you swing by, you can see just what it means to the local community, and after us, you'll have a chance to see the youth hockey on the ice. But thank you as you make these important decisions coming up. We hope you will give this some thought.
Great, thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Colbert. And we had some ladies walk in the back. Are any of you Lindsay Thompson? Please come on down. If you would, please speak directly into the microphone and introduce yourself for the record. Thank you. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Lindsay Thompson. Sorry, I'm out of breath. My son is a junior ice flyer ice hockey player. He's 9 years old. And I am also an adult figure skater. We actually got started together in the program 3 years ago. And now he plays 10U House. And as far as speaking for tourism, I wanted to let you know the opportunities that we have to bring massive amounts of ice hockey players and their families to our areas. So our team alone, we have 64 rooms that we will be staying in a hotel in Nashville next month, and it's $230 a night. That's $44,000 that we're spending just on the hotel rooms. I have a write-up here, and from an estimate from a travel family, each family staying in a $150 a night hotel, 3 nights, $200,000 alone in hotel, and registration fees exceed $50,000 for the tournaments, for signing up for the fees. So as far as speaking for revenue for tourism, we have a lot of people that are very excited to travel here that would extend their stay at Pensacola Beach after. We have people begging to come here, and we have over 200 hockey players alone in our league that would all gladly skate year-round. So we have money, and we want to spend it, and we want to bring tourism to our area. So, do you have any questions for me?
Does anyone have any questions for the speaker? No? Thank you so much. We
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Is there anyone else from the general public that hasn't signed up that would like to speak today? No? All right. We will move on. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is election of vice chair. Because of the new appointed members, one of the members who was looking to get reappointed did not get reappointed. He was our vice chair of the board, Ronnie Rivera. He will be missed on this board, but we do need to have an election for vice chair. So at this time, I will open the floor to nominations. Is there such a nomination?
I'd like to nominate Jason Nicholson for vice chair.
All right, so we do have one nomination for Jason Nicholson. Is there another? We doubled the pay. We doubled it. All right. Hearing no other nominations, the nomination is closed, and by default, congratulations. We do not need to have a vote. There was one nominated. Thank you, Jason. Well, I guess I should ask, are you willing to serve as vice chairman first?
I am willing to serve.
Okay, thank you. Well, congratulations, and thank you for the nomination. All right. Then Moving on to the next item is the review and approval of the December 17th, 2024 meeting minutes. Those were also distributed in the packet. Hopefully, you've had the opportunity to review them. Are there any amendments, changes that anyone has seen?
Move to approve.
We have. Well, we have a motion from Mr. Reeves. I don't know who seconded. Councilwoman Briere. Is there any objection? Hearing no objection, please show those adopted. Thank you. All right, next item is status of funds available. Mr. Hall, the Budget Office, come on down. See you're bringing backup. He's bringing his muscle.
Good afternoon, council members. Stephen Hall, Management and Budget. So I would like to introduce Jeremy. He is my new senior budget analyst, and he will be providing you with the status of funds today.
Right. Thank you.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Jeremy Pagaligan. I'm a senior budget analyst with the Escambia County Budget Office. Today, I will be presenting you with the status of the TDT funds through January 25. I believe the clerk's office has already provided you with a copy of the breakdown of the expenditures. The fiscal year 25 collections with interest through the end of January 2025 total $5,426,905 as compared to collections through January 2024 totaling $5,630,730. That brings us to a decrease in collections of roughly $203,825 from this year to last. Fiscal year 25 collections through January totaling $5,426,905 are 26.47% of the fiscal year 25 TDT budget of $20,500,000. The expenses through January 25 total approximately $4.35 million, and the current TDT cash balance is $30.4 million through February 2025.
Right. Any questions, comments?
Who's getting the interest on that 30 million?
Mr. Hall, who gets to keep the interest from the accumulated balance in the fund?
The Board of County Commissioners.
Does that stay in Fund 108, the unrestricted portion that the county commissioners?
Everything that's in the Tourist Development Tax Fund stays in the Tourist Development Tax Fund until it is expended.
Thank you.
And just while I have council's attention,
Yep.
I would like to mention here on the next board agenda, we will be having the Unified Budget Supplement, which is in line with the approved Tourist Development Council Reserve Policy. That amount for the Unified Supplement
$1,300,000.
was $690,332. Those funds will be used for ACE, Pensacola Sports, and Visit Pensacola.
Let me ask you a question. What's your estimated interest income on that $30 million, just ballpark?
So I would not like to estimate that just because there are changes in the market, but let's see. It was over $1 million last year. It was probably closer to $2 million.
Okay, and then can you clarify for me, that money stays in tourism development, or does that go to the general fund?
It does not go into the general fund.
Okay.
Interest earned in the Tourist Development Tax Fund stays and is recognized in the Tourist Development Tax Fund.
Beautiful, thank you.
Great. Thank you.
So does it go to us, or does it
Are there any other questions or comments for Mr. Hall related to that item? Mr. Hall, I wouldn't go very far. Because next we're having discussion on, thank you for that update, by the way, the report. Discussion on policies and procedures. We have, as you guys are aware, this board has set out several different policies and procedures. We accepted and were then accepted by, I believe, the county commissioners, that we set up we had a committee that set up those restricted reserve funds so that we can start to try to plan moving forward rather than just waiting until someone shows up and expending all the money at the end of the year. And so those funds, I believe I think it's in everybody's, I don't know if it's in everybody's packet or not, but there is a TDT Restricted Marketing Reserve Fund plan and it shows the balance. It's in the packet? Okay. I have mine also. Does everybody have this document? Okay. Are they is this in the packet? Danielle?
Yes, it's in the packet.
Okay. Thank you. So this is really for an update at our last meeting. I think Tish, it was you that asked what those, the balance in each one of those funds are. And so this report shows the balance in those funds. It also has on there the policy behind how they would be funded, with the 50% going of the recurring fund, 108 balance being carried over, 25% would go to the unified budget operation, 15% to unified budget restricted reserve with a $5 million cap on that restriction, and a 10% special event restricted reserve with a $2 million cap, so that we can build those reserves to those levels. And, once at least those two, the unified budget restricted reserve and the special event restricted reserve hit those caps, then they would no longer need to be funded until those dollars were drawn out for programs. And so you see where they are right now. The unified budget marketing restricted reserves at $2.5 million. The special event restricted reserve is at $500,000. I don't know. I will explain it. The unified budget is the combination of the three major TDT recipients, which is Visit Pensacola, Pensacola Sports, and ACE, Art, Culture, Entertainment, Inc. Those three organizations. They came together. They cover arts and culture. They cover sports and all other tourism development.
And is there any cap on the unified budget?
In what way? You mean in every year in
Well,
allocation?
what I mean is the more money we take in, the more money the unified budget has. So my question to you, is there any cap on the unified budget, or does it just keep increasing as our collections increase?
Every single year when we have our budget workshop, and then we approve a budget and recommend it to the county commission, and then they adopt their budget, it has an amount allocated to them. So there's no policy that caps, if that's what you're asking for. There's no cap there's no top or bottom to that number. The only restriction on TDT as far as marketing is concerned is the statute requires at least 40% of the tourist development tax be spent on advertising and promotion. Does that answer your question, sir? Thank you. Any other comments or questions related to the reserve fund? Just want to make sure we have a couple new members, or really, since we adopted this, the four on that end are all new, our council, city council members and
So
the new
what
members.
action would you want us to take on this, or is it just
No
strictly
action.
information?
That's informational. And then we also adopted some policies and procedures on how we are going to, when folks make a request for funding, how those requests will happen. They have to, there are forms that they have to fill out. There is, I don't know, if there's a checklist. Stefan, I don't know if you want to address it, but that should also be in your packet. It shows,
A sample application.
I'm sorry?
A sample application is in the packet.
The policy and procedure that shows a sample of the form they fill out. It's not
Well,
an actual application.
But if you looked at Navy Days, their application, that would be an example of one that is filled out, correct?
I mean, if Navy Days filled out an application, they filled out an application, and that's an example of a filled-out application, but
Well, in my
talking
package, I have a Navy Days application completely filled out.
So for council purposes,
Yes.
so the TDT checklist is actually part of the miscellaneous appropriations agreement that ultimately goes to the board for approval. It is not part of their application process, but as you know, we have any number of questions that show whether or not a request supports tourism. That is what would be in the application. What staff does is we apply the applicable portion of the tourist development statute for the event, venue, service, whatever the thing is that we are funding that supports tourism. Ultimately, that gets approved by my board, and then that gets filed with the clerk's office.
My question would be, the very first thing says that they have to have an amount of money equal to the amount of money that they're asking from us. The question would, who verifies that up front or out back?
So that would be my office. So we would look at that and make sure that they have funds, to your point, that are equal or greater than the request. We request financials from each entity requesting dollars from the county, whether irrespective of the source of funds. So, but yes, that is looked at.
But I can put in ticket sales as meeting that criteria?
No, sir. So again, they are required to provide some sort of financials, whether it's audited financials or just something that they had their accounting firm to do, something to show a P&L, a profit and loss statement, something that shows the sources of income and the expenditures that they have by organization.
But the sources, to answer that, your last question, Jim, the sources of revenue income could come from ticket sales, whatever their program revenue, organization's revenue is.
So we would look at whatever it may be a year or two old of whatever they have been doing, which may be their most current financials, but we're going to look and see what historically they've been doing, not what they think. So as part of their budget proposal, it may certainly include ticket sales, but we're going to look and see what they've actually done.
Do you look at, is there a requirement other than they have an amount equal to what they're requesting? They don't have to spend it on the same thing, do they?
Well, if it's tourist development tax, it has to be in support of tourist development.
But other revenue sources do not necessarily.
Correct.
So if they have revenue from ticket sales and they want to spend it on a party, a reception, they could do that.
I'm just trying to understand, the very first thing says matching funds in an equal amount. And it's interesting to me whether or not that has to be spent on the same project, their matching funds.
If it is within a program, they can certainly reinvest those dollars in the program. So again, as I'm looking at a historical financial profit and loss, a financial statement, so I'm going to look and see what they've been doing. So long as they're spending whatever income that they've had off that on the event or whatever service or thing that they've done, then that's okay.
So you determine whether it's within the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cent and you determine whether they meet the matching criteria. You're kind of the czar.
If I understand the question correctly, yes. So depending on what thing each of our tourist development tax partners are doing, yes. So I do look at the governance of each penny to ensure that each penny is being spent properly.
Thank you.
Thanks. So everyone has a copy of the policies and procedures, and I just want to make sure everybody takes a look at it. If we have any questions, please ask today if you have questions. If not, anytime at our next meetings.
Mr. Chair, I just have one question. On the date adopted and date effective, it says February 8th of 2024. Is that last year, or should it be this year?
24 was last year. That was adopted last year.
It was adopted last year?
It was adopted last
Okay,
year.
great. Thank
Yeah,
you.
this is for informational only. We're not voting to approve anything in here today.
Right, thank you.
All right. And I know, I can't recall, hold on a second. Yep, no, that's it. All right, any other comments or questions related to that? Did you have any comments, Stefan? Related to the policies and procedures? So you want to talk about the reimbursement process?
Would the chairman want to discuss that now or later in the meeting?
I think this is the only time on our agenda we can.
Okay. All right. In our policies and procedures, we actually do have under section 7(2), basically we have a generic list of items or a checklist, if you will, of what it takes to get a tourist development tax reimbursement through our county process. So what I would say, I think that this needs to be updated in our policy. As some of our council is aware, we've had additional Attorney General opinions that have been applied to our tourist development tax reimbursement process. We've had a change in some of those rules, which ultimately make things more accurate, more applicable, and compliant with Florida statutes. So I think that it would be helpful for our clerk's office to assist us with this particular section, to have something that's more comprehensive, clear, and concise on what it takes to get tourist development tax reimbursement. So again, that is just something that I wanted to mention to council. I think that might be very helpful, not only for me and my staff, for council, tourist development tax partners, and for our clerk staff as well.
So are you looking for like some sort of checklist so that everyone understands what the expectation is to provide when they submit for the reimbursement of the use of the funds?
Yes, sir, and hopefully that would include any updated rules, any other things that are required, again, through our clerk's reimbursement process as well.
Okay. So beyond just clear checks, bank statements showing the proof of
Correct.
expenditures, but other evidence?
Correct. One example, we had an Attorney General opinion that ultimately affected Visit Pensacola with travel writers. So I know we're working through travel policies and things like that just to make sure that we're complying with statute. Some of that gets pretty nuanced, and having something that is very clear and comprehensive would be very helpful.
Okay.
So they were also, Melanie in my office was also working with the clerk's office on almost a quick reference guide. So for example, one of the last things that came up is you absolutely can't buy alcohol. So yes, you can use it for this, but no, you can't use it for that, just so it's clear to whoever's applying for the money. They were also working on that.
But to your point, no public funds are expended for the purchase of alcohol, no
Correct.
matter if it's
It's
tourist
really
development
a sh-
tax,
it's
general
really a
fund,
shame.
or any other.
Kidding. Did you have your light on?
question.
Yes, sir.
In that same section, it says that they must document in the post-project report. Is there a reason why this panel doesn't ever get a post-project report from anybody that gets funds? We don't get a copy of that.
So what you have in front of you is the post-project today, which is later in the current agenda. So it's the annual reports for the tourist development tax from 2024. So that is the report card that is mentioned in this section.
Okay.
Yep. So, yeah, so we were provided with copies of everybody's annual report.
Right.
And that is the post-project. It's, at the end of the year, recaps their program that they received the funding to support.
Okay.
So where do we need to go to get I guess we could request from the clerk's office, they're here today.
Correct.
something
That
for
would
the
be very
expectation.
helpful if the clerk's office would assist us with that. That would be very helpful.
Does anyone from the clerk's office wish to address this with us? No? Nope? Well, I think, do we want to formally make a request for, yes, ma'am, are you going to turn the light on, or no? Is it- Well, that we have some sort of checklist of the expectation so that all of our outside agencies know exactly what it is they need to submit so that we can more timely, those folks can more timely get their reimbursements made.
Absolutely, yes. We can make that request, and Melanie and I are happy to head that up as well. So we can work with the clerk's office on that,
Thank you, Commissioner.
of course. Thank you.
So, but when the final report or request is given to us, it goes to the county commission for funding. So we don't really appropriate anything.
That is correct.
Everything gets funded by the county commission.
I would say it would be nice as if it, by the time it came to us, we knew it checked all the boxes. So if that could be a prerequisite of you guys recommending it.
Yep, that is part of the policies and procedures, that there is the checklist that they will fill out, that actually Stefan's office, Management and Budget Office, fills out to make sure, and one of those checks is that it came to this board first for consideration before it actually goes to the BOCC.
That is correct, Commissioner. So my office does cite the statutory reference that's allowed, that is attached to the agenda item that is approved by the board. And ultimately, when we're processing those payments, the clerk has that on the top of that packet that is ultimately used in the reimbursement.
Okay, perfect. It would also be nice if we knew it checked all the boxes for funding before, because the last one did not. And I know the last one was a little bit different, but I think as we're
Commissioner,
becoming more of a, yeah.
Yes, I agree. So that one was a little bit of a different circumstance and situation than we've had so far.
Yeah, since we're speaking about that, we're talking about Wine on the Water
Correct.
event. And so I understand there were some issues with the actual program, but the process of their funding request came to, they checked, they filled out the form, all the application, they came to us, our board approved that. Then it was taken to your board, and I believe it was approved there, but then it was told it was not going to be funded. And obviously now I've been made aware they've rescinded their request, but, and that there was comments made that they needed to go through Visit Pensacola for that request, but we have no policy or nothing in the law that requires that to happen. So I'm not sure if that's something we need to update our policies on, if that's what the BOCC would prefer.
I think for us, it would be good if all of the requests came through the DMOs, not just Visit Pensacola, but also Pensacola Sports, to make sure that they're all being vetted the same way. I also don't know that those organizations have the amount of money that they need, nor do I think they review grants often enough to meet that need in the community now. So I think if we do that, it would require an overhaul of specifically how Visit Pensacola works, because they only review grants once a year, and that wouldn't be enough for this.
Right. Okay,
So probably a bigger discussion there.
yes. Okay.
Got a question.
Yes, sir.
On the post-project report, is there anything that shows in there, how do they prove room nights or economic impact? Or is that just, is there like an actual survey or something that's done that they prove, or they go by the event holder?
So you will see that some had a professional study done or a professional analysis done. Others are done in-house. So the purpose of this, as a staff person, I have no opinion other than council and the board approve these, and clearly there is value in tourism for each of these partners, but it is for council to have reviewed those, to ask those questions of any particular partner that you want to. Is there something that could be done better? To have those conversations.
I think at some point we should require anybody that's getting funding, if they're going to come back for funding, they should have to prove the room nights. It doesn't make sense for us to keep funding something that's not bringing in room nights or economic impact.
So are you suggesting to do that through the use of, like a service, as an example, the Haas Center to do an economic or a visitor interface survey? Is that what?
I think we would make them
Do it?
responsible to,
Right, that's what I'm saying, but are you wanting to require each?
anybody that gets funds, maybe a certain amount, if there's a lower amount that somebody would, but, we haven't had really anybody that's come here for a low amount, but anybody that, if they're getting a specified amount or over a specified amount, that they should provide us with proof of room nights, not just say, hey, my event, I think it had this many, or we had this many ticket sales, and because of this ticket sales, this is what we think we brought in. I think we should require that.
You recognized?
Couldn't they, if they are getting room nights, couldn't they go through the hotel that they're to acknowledge how many room nights they stayed at that hotel?
They could, but I would put that on them. But I think most of the requests we're getting at 200,000 and 300,000, they would have to use more than one hotel.
Right,
Yeah.
right. But I mean, they could, it is a way that it can be verified through going through the hotels. But I
Right.
would think we could put that back onto the organization
Right.
rather than any kind of county staff or our
Right.
staff.
Yeah, I think that was what he was suggesting.
Oh, okay.
They should also be able to track that by zip code, because assumingly anyone who lives outside of a driving radius would be spending the night. So if they track ticket sales by zip code, would that suffice?
Talking about like ticket sales? That could, I would assume, but sometimes they're not ticketed events that are receiving some funds from
That's
us.
true.
And so I know Visit Pensacola, Pensacola Sports, ACE, the Unified Budget Group, and some of the others, Cadillac does for his event, where they hire companies to come in and do the visitor interface, and they collect, and they end up reporting that economic impact of that
Right.
program to
That
show
makes
an
sense.
ROI on the investment. So,
Mr. Chairman, I agree with Mr. Patel that, I believe that in every end of event or report or whatever the name might be, we need to have some declaration or statement of the economic impact. And I would expand it beyond room nights. Just an example would be, there are a good many events that might serve one room night or two room nights, but have a tremendous impact on LOST via attendance to an attraction, or, we think about Blue Angels Air Show just as the pinnacle event. But there are many others that provide an economic impact to the community that extends beyond just the room nights. Certainly the room nights are the catalyst for TDT, and we want to see more of that. But at least an estimate of what the economic impact might be.
so if that is the wishes of this council, we can bring that back at our next meeting as an action item. And Tish, since you brought that up, do you want to bring that back as an action item on our next agenda?
Yes,
and
sir.
Have a recommendation to us?
All right.
Okay, great. Well, and I guess I would also ask, because Mr. Reeves, you were asking the question about the finances and how do we verify the matching funds that is a requirement of the county's application for miscellaneous appropriation. Do we want to have some sort of a requirement on like an audit or for organizations that are receiving a certain level of funding over some certain amount, or?
Well, I sure wouldn't name an audit, because most of the people that we're dealing with are not audited. NGOs, so, but I think we ought to have some verification. If that's the first thing out of the box, then we ought to know that that exists
All right.
somehow.
So how do you suggest we get that information? I mean, I know when there were issues back in early 2000s with an organization.
On the application where it says that, I'd say, see attached financial statement, or here's a statement from my bank, or here's a statement from my mattress company that's under my mattress,
Right.
something that we shouldn't go any further if they don't have that basic.
Right. I know in the application, they have to provide last year's, like a P&L. I don't know if I think there's a balance sheet maybe on there also requirement. Is that, I mean, that's already part of this. Is that acceptable to you? Or do you think they need to have something that's why I was suggesting like either an audit or just independent audit, independent review financials. Review is obviously a lot less expensive. It's less invasive.
Well, I have a hard time with financial statements, but, basically, the one I looked at, it had a financial statement. It didn't have any verification that says, I hereby certify that this is true and complete, but you had to look for it deeper in the application. Just, if you don't have what you're asking for, you're disqualified right off the bat. But I'm open.
Do you have a suggestion? I mean, there was
I
a
just want to
period.
know who's going to
Yes.
develop this checklist.
Well,
We'll get the clerk.
well,
of the
this is
court
part of
to-
the application process is providing the financial. And then at the end of the year, the organizations are they're submitting their financials, they're submitting their annual report showing, with an impact study, if we're going to move to do that, some sort of independent economic impact study through visitor interface or however it's performed. There was a time when the county was requiring outside agencies to have an audit. I guess the county has gone away from that, but as a result of, I think it was the Arts Council of Northwest Florida was falsifying some financial records, and was shut down. And after that, all of the organizations that were receiving funds had to provide audits. Or maybe it was just the Arts Council's successor that was required to do it. I don't know. But that was a requirement. It was in the miscellaneous appropriation agreement. But I know we've gone away from that as a requirement. And sometimes audits are expensive depending on the organization, but reviews are a lot less expensive, but they're not as detailed and aren't necessarily as accurate because it's whatever you give them to review is what they review. If you don't want them to review something financially, you don't give it to them, even though they're independent. But, Stephen, you were recognized.
So the board's policy is we do not require our community partner applicants to have an audited financial statement. If you have it, that's fantastic. We'd love to have it. But yes, those are more expensive. But the board's policy is we do require tax returns and financial statements. So again, it's give us your P&L, an income statement, show us what you've got coming in, what you have going out. Certainly for nonprofits or not-for-profits, some of these things are expensive and makes it a little more difficult for those folks to apply for our board grants or maybe even TDT grants and things of that nature. So I just want to make that clear.
All right. Thank you. Well, since I'm not hearing any recommendations, I guess we can move on. All right, I think that, any other comments or questions about policies, procedures? Thank you, Commissioner, for working with your office to work with the clerk to work on that checklist. Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is discussion about the Chappie James Memorial Plaza. Mr. Reeves, you asked to put this on the agenda. You were recognized.
Well, first of all, let me say this. I like to believe this assumption, and the assumption is this: if this board doesn't recommend an expenditure to the county commission, they don't have the ability to make that appropriation. That's an assumption that I'm making because that's the way I read the statute. That we recommend, and if we don't recommend, it doesn't happen. So that's number one as it relates to this particular thing. Number two, I had a discussion with the chairman of the county commission, and he told me that this matter was on the agenda for the county commission tomorrow.
Probably Thursday. Look at the county commissioner to your right. She probably has
Thursday.
the date.
And that they felt that here was a four-star general that was the only one around and a hero, and that we really ought to either fund it or forget it. And he led me to believe that the funding would be greater than the $750,000 that we've already approved. And the reason I wanted to put it on the agenda was, if that's true, then I would like us to either consider the additional amount or not consider the additional amount and stick with where we were. But I just don't like the county commission moving forward with an appropriation that this board hadn't approved. I'm not emotional about it. I'm just feel like if that's our position, we ought to stick with it. And so let us hear from the Chappie James folks and see what the plan is.
Okay. So I see Mr. Joseph in the back. You guys want to welcome? Thank you. And please introduce yourself again. Thank you.
My name is Chris Dosev. I'm a resident of Pensacola, 1725 Whaley Avenue.
Thank you.
Been here since 2009. But I went to flight school, got my wings back here in 1986. With regards to, thank God we're just talking about a memorial and not buying eggs, because the request would be a heck of a lot more these days. But in this regards to the 750 to $1 million, our initial request happened a couple years ago. Increase in prices in concrete and steel precipitate the additional requests, and we were advised that if you're going to ask to make sure that you have enough funds so we can complete the project. At this point, we've raised $1.3 million, and so in addition to the 1.3, the $1 million would cap off what we would need to complete the project. Are there any other specific questions?
So what are you going to ask the county commission for on Thursday?
The $1 million. The $1 million. So I understand that the 750 is approved, and but they haven't voted on the 750. So what do you suggest, Mr. Reeves?
Well, I suggest, in the spirit of, if we're going to approve it before it goes to the county commission, then a motion to make it $1 million would probably be in order, because you've been asking for this money for a long time, and we know whatever 750 was going to do 2 years ago, it ain't going to do today.
And that's reality.
So I would suggest that we increase our recommendation to, and I would like to make that motion and get somebody to second it, so we can at least discuss whether we should go from the 750 to the million. So I would move that we move up to the county commission's number of $1 million.
All right. We have a motion from Mr. Reeves to increase the funding for this project to $1 million. Is there a second?
I'll make a second.
Thank you. We have a second from Commissioner Hoffberger. Debate or discussion? Anyone have any comments?
Yeah, just a few points. I wasn't here for the vote on the $750,000, and I can't weigh into that, but, putting my economist hat on, I feel compelled just to offer a couple of data points on the allocation. First of all, I want to say, just with a pause, the work that you're doing to create a memorial to honor General Chappie James is truly honorable.
Thank you.
I appreciate your valor in doing this exercise. I do want to point out that if we're on a 5% tax rate of TDT, the Memorial Plaza would need to generate over 141,000 new and incremental room nights just to replace that Catalyst TDT at 5%. That's $20 million in room revenue that I'd like for the council to consider over the life of the plaza. Again, the $750,000 has already been voted, but now we're talking about another $250,000. And I read the second Attorney General's opinion. Although she did not render an ultimate opinion based on the ownership of the plaza in and of itself, it did include some reference and definitions that I think we should reconsider. One being the definition of promotion, another being the definition of tourism. And I believe categorically a plaza is not allowed in the funding mechanism for TDT, so maybe there needs to be some reconsideration of that phrase. I don't want to reconstruct the application, but just for the council's consideration, $20 million in room revenue, and what I'm using is the average daily rate from Visit Pensacola's 2024 annual, it's called a Star Global report. It's a bit of an incestuous hoteliers report where we know how a particular market is performing. In 2024, the average rate was $141. So simply take $20 million, divide it by 141, and you come up with almost 142,000 room nights. So just for your consideration, will the plaza that I agree is needed and I support personally, is the plaza going to generate 142,000 incremental room nights over its life?
I think you're taking this particular plaza and isolating from the overall scheme of that park structure. You have 13 acres there associated with the plaza, with parking, okay, with boat ramps, and a plan, I believe, the city to incorporate that into a coastal walkway and park area, sort of like what they have in Chicago, all the way to extend to Bruce Beach. So just to simply isolate the plaza, I think is very myopic. And you're not taking into account the overall general scheme. Imagine driving across that bridge and seeing an 80-foot flagpole. Everybody that comes to Pensacola is going to say to themselves, they're going to say to themselves, now that's a town I want to visit because they're proud to be Americans. There's an intrinsic value to that I don't think you can add up with any kind of calculation.
Well, unfortunately, it's the role of this board to add that up and to consider all of the supporting elements to the plaza. Look, I want this to happen as much as any other citizen in Escambia County, but I do need to reference the facts of the statute. We need to check statutory boxes first, and then we can talk about if it's effective or not secondarily. But for me, I'm having a hard time checking the first box as if it aligns with the statute. And then we can talk about, whether it will generate 140. I hope it would. I hope it would generate a 500,000 or 1 million incremental room nights. I have a personal vested interest in that. But for the benefit of the board, I'd like to share that data point with you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'll just remind the board, when we did the motion that the action that we took as a board was recommending to the county commission to fund this project at $750,000 pending the outcome of the Attorney General's opinion that it was ineligible under the statute. It was an eligible funding project. I went back to the opinion as well, or obviously it's not an opinion, it's a letter, because they still need more information related to the ownership. If it is going to be a publicly owned facility, they do define promotion and advertising, and then they also talk about the eligibility for funding for construction, that it is, the statute enumerates certain items that are eligible for funding for construction, and what is not enumerated, the statute says is not eligible for funding. And a plaza, in the letter, the Attorney General opines, or doesn't opine, but states that plaza is not one of the items that is listed in the statute as eligible for funding for construction. It can be used, tourist development tax can be used for funding the promotion and advertising of, if the county commission deems it to be, which is the local governing board, the county commission deems it to be tourism development. And there's a couple of things that I think are still outstanding. One of the reasons the letter, the Attorney General could not make an opinion was because at the time that they were considering it, they did not have any commitment from the city of Pensacola that they would own not only the land,
and they
but
have an
its
agreement
improvements.
with the city of Pensacola, and the mayor has indicated that if we and if the county commits to spending the money, then he will do the work to amend the agreement to fit the Attorney General's opinion. But he basically said, I'm not going to put it on my legal staff to work out all that if you ain't going to appropriate the money. So it's a chicken or egg situation. So
Well, our statute says we can't fund the
I'm
facility.
not going to argue,
I
I'm
know.
not going to
I'm
argue
just,
with you. This has already been resolved as far as I'm concerned. If the city is willing to take the responsibility, then we don't have a problem with the Attorney General's opinion, in my opinion. But I have been practicing law as long as you have.
well, you're the only lawyer at this table, but I have read the statute, and I'm not a lawyer, but I have talked to lawyers, and I have read the statute, and it lists things that are eligible for use of the tourist development tax for construction. I agree. I think this is a great project. I personally have given to this project, and would like to see it come to fruition. I know the project has changed since its original concept. Obviously, it was to use the land and raise the funds privately to construct it. It did not have the big concrete pad with the steps and the handicap access. The pictures on the website show it sitting on the ground.
But you know why that is the case, though? Why we incorporated that raised plaza?
I'm assuming to make it. No, I don't. Why don't you tell us?
No, because at that location during Hurricane Ivan, it's between 4 and 6 feet above sea level. That was covered with 10 foot of water. That's why. So we're hardening the location in anticipation of a potential storm. We've taken that into account because you have a statue, you have an aircraft, and the flagpole will survive. But in the big scheme of things, we want to make sure that it will survive a storm.
Councilman Bear?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And, after reading the Attorney General's opinion and then listening to Mr. Nicholson, I really just don't think this is the right source. I think we have limited dollars. I know we have a lot for tourist development, but it doesn't seem like it fits the statute, and I think the county can do what they want. I mean, the county commission has funds, they can fund it in some other way, but I just don't think tourist development tax is the way to go. Thank you.
Thank you.
I move we call the question.
Was there other comment? Did you have your light on, Councilman?
Oh, I'll
Just
withdraw that. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Just that, I believe it would actually have to go back before the city council after all this as well. I mean, there's a lot of carts before the horse here that have me confused. That's really where I am. I absolutely agree with the entire memorial. I think that's a great idea. I think it's good for the city. But I don't know that we are in the proper order of how things are supposed to be done and using the proper money that is supposed to be used for this. And I'm just, that's where I'm a little bit confused, to tell you the truth.
motion was-
And for the mayor to say, for us to say the mayor says he's going to do this, I don't think that actually it's in his purview. It would actually have to go back before the city council at that point to see where it does. We've got a lot of ifs still going in place, a lot of, anyway, just some consideration also for what's going on here is
I
that,
call the question.
yes.
We ain't getting any more
Mr. Reeves, we
positive.
still have some other members that not had the opportunity to speak to your motion.
I mean, are they going to speak in favor?
I don't know, but I don't think that's.
Well, then I don't think we ought
Can I
to waste
clarify
the time
something?
of all these other people.
I'd like to.
Yes.
Mr. Reeves said that if this board doesn't recommend it, that it can't move on to BCC, but I don't think that's right. I think this board, whether we recommend it or do not, the Board of County Commissioners can do as they wish. So even if we don't recommend it, they can still go to Board of County Commissioners and they'll still decide how they want to decide.
I believe you'd be
We're
correct.
all wasting our time.
Our policy is that it has to come to this board for consideration before it goes to the county commission. That doesn't mean it has to be approved by this board before it goes to the county commission.
I will say, as the county commissioners, we do respect your opinions, so we do take it into consideration. So it's not like it's a moot point. So if you say, hey, we don't recommend giving above the 750, or we do recommend giving $1 million, that's going to be what carries the most weight with the board when we go to vote on it.
Yeah, I just don't believe it's a legal source for construction. So, all right, well, you're calling for the question. So I guess those in favor of, the motion was
250.
for $1 million appropriation recommendation to the county commission. That was your motion, correct? Yes, so those in favor, well, actually, let's call the roll, if you would, please.
Ashley Hoffberger,
Present.
No, it's a yes or no for the vote. I'm sorry. Yes. Yes,
So
to
the
fund,
750 stands.
the 750 is already there. The motion on the floor is to fund it at the full $1 million request, rather than the 750 that we've already recommended.
Okay. Yes, in favor.
James Reeves,
Yes.
Shirley Cronley,
No.
David Baer,
No.
Matish Patel,
No.
Charles Baer,
No.
Jennifer Bayer, Brad Molinex,
No.
Jason Nicholson.
No.
So the motion fails. Do you have any other comments or discussion? No?
I have a few things I'd like to say.
Yes, sir.
This next week is a very important week in Marine Corps history. I don't know if you're aware of it. But February 19th historically was known as Iwo Jima Day. One of my personal heroes, and Americans do not forget their heroes, was Gunnery Sergeant John Basilone. John Basilone received the Medal of Honor for his actions at the Battle of Guadalcanal. He rejoined his Marines and landed on Iwo Jima on February 19th. He was killed on that same day. We landed 30,000 Marines on that island. 30,000. After 36 days of battle, over 6,000 were killed. Over 25,000 were injured. To put that in perspective, the last 20 years of war in Iraq and Afghanistan, we had about 7,500 killed and 25,000 injured. In a matter of 36 days, we sustained nearly the same amount. He's a personal hero of mine, and so is General James. General James, on the other hand, spent 35 years in the service of his country. 35 years. Participated in 3 wars. He celebrated his 58th birthday on February 11th, 1978. He retired from the Air Force on February 1st of that same month. He died on February 25th, not having received even 30 days as a retired officer. He died. Basically, he gave his entire life to sacrifice defending this country. That's what he did. The issue on Iwo Jima, it haunted me as a Marine officer. I spent 10 years on active duty, and I'll tell you why it haunted me. Because at this point of Desert Storm, I'd already flown 20 missions in defense of those Marines. And I knew this, that in a matter of 3 days, we were going to assault the country of Kuwait with 45,000 Marines. And it haunted me to think, because I knew I had friends that flew in the body bags. They flew in a bag. They flew 20,000 body bags on one aircraft into Saudi Arabia in anticipation of casualties. That's what haunted me as a Marine planner and bombardier. Thank God that did not happen. And we only ended up with about 150 casualties. Veterans in this community may not have the money to put their names on buildings and things of that nature. But I can tell you this, the time and effort and sacrifice that they have given to this country and this community is immeasurable and priceless. The veterans in this community want to see a monument honoring General James in this community. And they expect the participation of people on boards, whether it's the county or the council or boards like this. We all benefit from the sacrifices. I came back after Desert Storm, became a Marine officer instructor at Northwestern University, where I trained 2 battalions of midshipmen to become future officers. But more to the point, my son is currently forward deployed off the coast of China with the Marines and his Marines in defense of our national interests. That's the kind of people you have coming from this community. So when you think about dollars and you're concerned about whether it says plaza or venue, remember that. And remember John Basilone. And remember, Americans do not forget their heroes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Joseph, and thank you for your service to our country and your passion for this project and everything you're doing. I just want to make sure you understand we are not trying to conflate the 2 issues. One, General James was a hero, a local hero, and we appreciate his service and what he did for our country and clearly what he did for our community. But we as the Tourist Development Council are obligated to follow the laws that were written by the Florida legislature, and that law does not allow us, in my interpretation, and many other people I've heard on this dais today, that this law and the Attorney General has written in her letter that this law does not allow us, there is no section of this law that allows us to use tourist development tax for the construction of that plaza. We hope that we will be able to use those funds to market it, because I think it is a tourist attraction. I think it's important to our community to recognize it, and thank you for all the efforts you're doing to put this together. Mr. Hall?
Council Chairman, before we leave this item, so Ultimately, previously, this council did approve this particular item contingent upon the Attorney General opinion that we received. Did you want to discuss the independent analysis for this item?
So, Mr. Hall, thank you for reminding me. Mr. Hall asked if we are going to fund this, if the county commission is going to consider this to be tourism development, and we spend money on that, whether or not they should do engage the Haas Center to do a study, an economic impact study of this project to show, because a portion of the statute requires an economic impact study, and that is for public facilities under that section. I think that's A5, 6, something, I don't know. Anyway, they're approximately $3,500 to $5,000 is the study. The cost for the study. Is there interest in doing that? The study will just show the economic impact of this project if it comes, what type of return, not necessarily for construction, but also for marketing, and if it is something that's valuable for us to market. So that is the request from the Budget Office for this council to consider. Mr. Bear, Councilman Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So let me get this straight. We're asking if we should do an economic development study for something apparently looks like we can't fund with TDT money,
We can fund the promotion of it, but not the
construction.
Correct.
What was the $750,000 allocated for? Construction?
So that was for construction pending the outcome of the Attorney General's opinion saying that it was an eligible construction project.
Okay. Well, I wasn't here when that happened, but I almost think that we need a motion to undo that $750,000 for construction. If we're going to put something towards promotion, that's one thing. But I feel like we're not in keeping with the statute right now if we leave that $750,000 that we're recommending to the county commission.
Was that in the form of a motion?
Well, I wasn't on, I don't know if it's not a reconsideration because I wasn't on the,
Right.
I wasn't here.
So does that not fall under outdoor museum?
I'm sorry.
Does that not fall under an outdoor museum, the construction of the monument? Is that not what that's, because I thought that was their argument.
That it's a museum,
I thought they were trying to pitch it as an outdoor museum.
but I'm not sure that it is a museum. It's a plaza, and there's a difference. It's not an aquarium, it's not a plaza, it's not a sports arena or a coliseum.
The chairman is correct with the particular words that are specific in the statute. So the chairman is correct from that perspective. So the ultimate point of getting that independent analysis, so there were basically two things in that Attorney General's opinion. The main one, or one of those, was the ownership issue, and the second, depending on if the board, my board, wanted to move forward with it, having an independent analysis to assist the board in making that factual determination that this investment directly and primarily supports tourism in the area. That's what this analysis would either show or prove or disprove.
Well, I mean, given the statute, and the Attorney General opinion, I would make a motion that we, I don't know the proper way to say it, rescind the $750,000 recommendation to the county commission.
So I guess we do have a deputy county attorney. Kristen, do you want to address how, I think Councilman Bear is trying to figure out how to make a motion of some sort to rescind the original recommendation by this board for the $750,000 allocation.
Well,
Like, is there an action that we take?
I
or
think
can?
that would be appropriate verbiage if that is what the intent is. I don't believe that has ever occurred.
So is that a motion?
That was a motion.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor to rescind the original $750,000 recommendation for funding for that project. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
We have a second from Mr. Patel. Is there any debate or discussion?
I'll make a
Councilman.
comment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe in this project too. I'm a veteran. And so when I hear another veteran talk about us not thinking about veterans, it really strikes me. So, and I wish Mr. Dosef was in the room, because as a veteran who served a year on foreign soil, I know the sacrifice. There were people in my unit that were injured. We didn't lose anyone. There were other civil affairs officers like me that were killed in action. Some of them, it was one that was very close to me in rank and family situation, who took his own life being over there. So there was a lot of stress in my service as well. And so I have great respect for, General James, and I want the plaza, or whatever we're going to call it, to be there. This has been really a challenging project as a council member, watching the mayor have to navigate this, and who's going to own it, who's going to maintain it. There's a lot of moving parts to this. But I think today, ultimately, what I'm trying to do is put this in the right position, because I don't personally think, we have an Attorney General opinion, which is not super clear, but it limits us. And I feel like the statute, I'm new to this board, so I know we talk about things that really we want to increase tourism with these dollars. I'm just not convinced that this particular project will do that. I think it's another feather in our cap as far as things we can offer people, along with Veterans Memorial Park, with the Naval Aviation Museum. We have a lot of great history here, Fort Pickens. Plus, we have beautiful beaches. There's lots we have to offer. But as I think about the limited dollars we have for tourism development, I read this Attorney General's opinion, I look at the statute, and think about this project, I just don't think this is the right source for the funding, which is why I made this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Comments?
Mr. Chairman, I concur with Stefan that I believe an independent study on the economic impact, or the forecasted economic impact of this memorial, as it were, would be tremendously valuable in future years. I wouldn't ask to amend the motion, but I would ask for the council to consider commissioning an independent study to prove the economic impact in the future.
All right.
Do we want to make the $750,000 contingent upon the study?
I believe Councilman Bear would have to amend his motion.
Yes.
Well, the way I understood it, that money that would be spent for the study would be for promotion. That'd be looking at promotion,
Okay.
not for construction. So I would have no problem adding to this motion that we would commission an economic impact study in addition to what we're going to do.
To rescind the $750,000 appropriation recommendation.
Right.
And add the
Economic
impact study.
I have no problem with that, having both those, so I'd accept that.
Your motion is amended.
Okay, yep.
Do you amend your second? Yes. So the second is also amended. Mr. Nicholson?
Mr. Chair, even if in our estimation and vote that the $750,000 does not align with the statute, I believe that it's the very least that we can do to support the construction of the memorial by commissioning a study to recognize the economic impact for future use. I don't see that as a waste whatsoever.
Thank you. Comments?
Yes.
Ms. Cromwell?
I just wanted to see if we could get a legal from the county attorneys as to if the BCC is asking for what the local is advising them to do. What would you use for this? I mean, how do you take into account what the state's office, state attorney said?
I'm not certain I understand the question.
My question is, we have a document that doesn't really say that this is a use of bed tax dollars. I mean, it doesn't, it says it's not as it's currently.
Meaning Ms. Musetta's letter?
Yes.
Okay.
So in your opinion, if to the BCC, will you recommend that they fund it or not based on?
I have not been asked to make a recommendation. I can say that it's within the board's discretion and I would recommend, if they are intending to make a legislative finding that this expenditure promotes tourism, that they should definitely obtain some sort of study, an independent study, to determine the economic impact to support that. Now, the reason I had previously recommended getting an Attorney General's opinion was precisely because this particular project did not appear to fit squarely within any one of these subsections, and there is no authority that is directly on point. So,
And you mean when you say this project, you're talking about the construction piece of it, not
correct.
necessarily promotion and advertising?
well, the project, what the money would be used for is essentially construction. It's to build the concrete pad. That's what the foundation has told us most recently that this allocation would be used for. So it's, I mean, in my mind, that's a construction project.
Right. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Councilwoman?
Just before she leaves,
You might as well stay.
However-
Have a seat next to Stephanie.
however, spending the money for the economic development or economic review would be acceptable in your view on this?
That's something that the TDC can
It's a-
recommend and
Okay.
and
You mean
authorize.
it's a authorized use of the tax to do the
Yes,
study?
it's an authorized use.
Thanks.
So, but it is, as you noted, it's only required under sub 5A6 if you're talking about public facilities. But it's certainly something, a tool that's been used in the past for various projects and allocations, so.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Hearing none, I will call the vote. If you would please do a roll call vote.
Ashley Hoffberger,
Yes.
James Reeves,
No.
Shirley Cronley. Yes. David Bayer,
Yes.
Matish Patel,
Yes.
Charles Bayer,
Yes.
Jennifer Bayer,
Yes.
Brad Mullinex,
Yes.
Jason Nicholson.
Yes.
Great. Motion passes 8-1. Thank you. All right, any other discussion about Chappie James Memorial Plaza before we move on? So Stefan, you have your marching orders to go ahead and, or whomever, your office, whomever, to engage the study. Thank you. All right. Next item on the agenda is Pensacola Base Center. I've asked Mr. Capps to come give us an update on the updates that are happening at the Base Center. Welcome.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, council members. Michael Capps, General Manager for ASM Global at the Pensacola Bay Center. And welcome to the new members. So today I'm just here to give you, there's a lot of things that have been talked about with the Bay Center. We've had many conversations back long years, so I'm not going to go all the way deep dive into that. There will be some more conversations coming forward. I believe Commissioner Kohler has put it up for the March 6th meeting. We're having some additional meetings with other stakeholders, vested in parties. You will see the Ice Flyers lease come up in front of the Board of County Commissioners this Thursday to extend that to continue the Ice Flyers operations. If you'll see in the backup for that agenda item, there does give you some data metrics that shows you how well Ice Flyers are doing. I won't dive into that too much, but they are averaging this season over 5,500 tickets sold. So they have steadily increased over the 5-year term that they are currently under, which has also had a direct impact on the venue's bottom line as an incremental growth. 5 years ago, we were making roughly $10,000 per game. Now we're closer to 50. So that's a big impact as far as net event income for the events that come in. For the capital projects that we have, the previous $10 million allocation that you were gracious to provide, those are in process. We have done the upgrades to the restrooms, locker rooms for the backstage area for the visiting team, home team, the training room for the Ice Flyers. That updates it, brings it from the 1980s. I mean, when we pulled up the floor, there was some pink tile that I don't think it's seen the light of day in almost 40 years. So starting to update it and make it look better. We'll complete that by the end of this summer. We do have bids out for the arena lighting, the arena sound system. The retractable seating has already gone out. It will be installed by the end of April. Due to we're trying to get that in before this season started, but with manufacturing and travel delays and so forth, we didn't get it in by the time the season start. Retractable seating, that is the 372 seats that are right first 3 rows. So your prime seats, your better seats that we can sell. They don't make parts for those anymore, so it was time to replace them. Some additional things that we're looking at is repaving, restriping the parking lots, replacing the fence around the exterior of the 9th Avenue lot, take care of that eyesore and dress it up a little bit, and then have some more functionality with some security as far as actually having gates at the front of the building, because currently anybody can drive up at any point and drive around. So we're trying to add that safety feature there. Beyond that, we did do some concession stand upgrades. So we took 2 of our stands that were not branded. We branded one to Pucky's Pizza, and we did the other one to Blues Barbecue. So we now do our own barbecue where we were doing hot spot. Cost of goods was much higher. Now we've brought that price point down, passed that on to the customer. So our volume hasn't, or excuse me, our revenue hasn't grown incrementally, but our prices have dropped. So you can imagine we were selling pretzels and hot dogs and hamburgers. Those cost of goods were much higher than what a pizza is. Right now, for a hockey game, we're selling 200, 250 pizzas a game. Whereas we weren't doing that, but it's a much more affordable option, a diverse option for our families that are coming in and enjoying the type of events that we have. Beyond that, we are going to be closed down this July, August, September. We'll still be doing meeting room functions, and also our food and beverage does the food and beverage for the Sanger Theater, so our kitchen will be supporting that over there. But July, August, September, we'll be tearing up the concrete floor, replacing it with a new ice plant, new ice floor, new ice rink. So everything's going to be brand new. We are also replacing the entire inventory of the rental skates. So our figure skates and our hockey skates will be completely renovated to where the inventory is swapped out and added more so we can increase our capacity. Because as you've heard from the ice programs, they do have a demand. They are coming in more and more. So we want to try to provide that option. We can't really afford the ice sheet, the secondary ice sheet right now at this point, but at least that's what we can do during the interim. We have, that currently is about $6 million of that $10 million. The remaining $4 million, it was to be allocated through the next 2 years. But those are projects that we're going to wait to put out as we get through these, because we don't want to spend money until we need to, because if there's something else that comes out, maybe we need to reallocate that towards the bigger plan of the renovations, where those prices are getting more and more, or further consideration is to not only renovate the venue, but add some conference space, event center, something to that effect down there. So we're trying to be smart and strategic with the funding that you have allocated for us so far. With that, I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you for the update. Questions, comments? Mr. Reeves?
How much are you going to spend?
The 10 million?
This is 10 million from your,
This is 10 million from, I believe, the reserves that came from the TDC that was allocated last summer.
Came from the,
and that's all?
That's it right now, yes, sir. Now, we are having conversations with the bigger scope that we came with previously in November with the sports facility combination and so forth. We've gone back to the drawing board with everybody involved, and we're having additional meetings, getting additional input from Pensacola Sports, Visit Pensacola.
So have you abandoned the bond?
I don't want to put Stefan on the spot, but I can't exactly really speak to that since I don't bond it. But we are still looking to pursue that. It's just what the bonding capacity is, and then how that bond is divided between the Base Center and other projects. And then getting that vision put together to be able to be presented and talked about, and at least have the conversation, hear what the county commissioners have to say. We take that back, work that together, and then we bring it back, and we would come up with a presentation of what type of facility renovations, what type of return on investment you would get from an operational plan, and we'd bring that to get approval from here, a recommendation to then take back to the county for a decision.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
That is topic of our next CAL meeting as well, so there'll be additional discussions on that in the March CAL meeting.
Great, thank you. Councilman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Capps, thank you. So after hearing the two ladies that spoke about the ice, then you're going to be, the main arena is going to be closed down for 3 months, is that right? July, August, September, is that what you said?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But after that time, do you think that the improvements will be made will assist with what their needs are, or is it just a scheduling issue? I mean, is that...
It's a scheduling issue.
Okay.
So, and not only are the ice programs not on ice, the hockey team left yesterday to be on the road.
Okay.
You know, so I'm sorry, they left last Wednesday to be on the road while Pensacon was here. Next week, they'll be on the road on Monday because we've got Sunbelt basketball in the whole week.
Gotcha.
And so when those go back to back, we do strategically schedule to where we try not to have Pensacon back to back with Sunbelt. It happened last year. We were looking at running into that next year, but we've made some adjustments with Pensacon. They've moved their dates, so we're getting stuff spread out a little bit more. But like when we get into April, we have 2 cheerleading competitions. We typically have Disney on Ice, and we have playoffs. And then we also have White Tie Rock, and we typically have MMA fighting events. They're all competing for those Fridays and Saturdays, and additional days it take to turn the building over, we lose that ice.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
And to be clear, that July, August, September, that's non-ice season. So we typically go October to April.
Any other questions or comments? No? Great, thank you, Michael, appreciate
you.
it. Stefan?
Just because we have quite a few new council members. So the $10 million that was allocated for these base center improvements came from the board's restricted 5th cent. So it did not come from the other 4 pennies. So I did want to make that distinction for the new members of council.
Yeah, so the 5th cent was, has started getting collected a few years ago. The first year, the county commission approved allocating it to the unified budget to help come out of the COVID from all the shutdowns, et cetera. And then from that point on, after that first year, it has been reserved to grow, and it has been the source to fund that $10 million project for a public facility.
Correct. Well said, Chairman. And Mr. Capps is correct. There's, over the next 2 years, there's $4 million of that remaining that will be transferred to the Base Center Fund to complete those improvements that were approved.
Thank you. All right, next on the agenda is outside agencies. I have every one of them listed. We're not getting updates from every single one of them. It was because we received the annual reports. If anyone had any questions, I wanted them all to be here. Visit Pensacola would like to give a presentation. So Darren, if you would please come on down.
All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to provide this annual report. I also want to congratulate our newest members of the council, Mr. Mullenix and Nicholson, as well as Commissioner Hofberger. Prior to this, provided 3 documents that you should have received. One is the Visitor Tracking Study and Economic Impact Report. You would have also received our annual report for Visit Pensacola for our last fiscal year 24, and also another report we did. We just celebrated our 10-year anniversary as an organization, and so we did a 10-year growth report from 2014 to 2023. Today, I'd just like to highlight some of those slides for everyone, and let's get going. So Visit Pensacola commissions research study every year. Our agency is down in St. Germain, and throughout the year, they are collecting in-person surveys throughout the county. They conducted 4,786 interviews, and they do those at the airport, the beach, downtown, out at the museum, and throughout the events that are held. in the county. So one of the big things that's important that we're always trying to do is we want to bring more people into the county. So in the last fiscal year, Pensacola attracted 2.5 million visitors, an increase of 2.3% over the previous year. And just to put that into perspective, Visit Florida recently did a press release for their fiscal year where visitation to the state was up 1.6%. So we're doing better than the state average. And when we compare to some of our peer destinations in Northwest Florida, we're doing better than a number of our peers. As a result, we generated almost 2.5 million room nights and paid accommodation, an increase of 3.5% over last year. And those lodging expenditures generated a record collection in tourism development tax of over $22 million, up 2% over last year. Visitors to Pensacola, and when we talk about Pensacola, we're really talking about the entire county, including Pensacola, Pensacola Beach, and Perdido Key. $1.3 billion in direct spending, up just 0.4%, but that results in a total economic impact of over $2 billion. Visitors to Pensacola, the area in 2024 contributed almost $65 million in local taxes for the county. Visitors support jobs, over 18,700 jobs in the county, breaks down to one job for every 137 visitors. And visitors to Pensacola area, through their spending and the taxes that they generate, basically save residents $513 per household in the last year. I also want to share some slides from our annual report that we presented at our last board meeting. And when we talk about our objectives, I wanted to show this slide again about the increase in tourism development tax over the years. Back in 2019 to 2020 fiscal year, our tax collections actually dipped below $10 million. And now we've set our best year at $22 million. So you can see the differences. We had some significant growth in 21 and 22, but we thought at some point, how is that possible that we have such growth because of all that pent-up travel demand that we would eventually, that wave would have to crash. And in 2023, we did see a small decline of 1%. And then since then, we're back up 2%. So that crash never really happened for us. Our marketing effort, I just want to talk about, is a layered approach. We take all the different channels and marketing techniques and we layer them on top of each other. And so some of our objectives I want to share. We talk about social media, as important as that is. That's an area that I think our team, our staff has done exceptionally well. We talk about goals of a 20% increase in followers. We had a 29% increase in followers. We talk about how much content we produce. 463 pieces of partner-related content was produced in the last fiscal year. Another objective is in our public relations, also very proud of the communications team that we have at Visit Pensacola, certainly one of our strengths. Talk about increasing our media coverage by 10%, and we increased it by 188%. 42% increase in articles produced, and we looked at host press trips. I can't emphasize enough how important it is. And the change that happens when we bring someone into Escambia County and they experience our downtown and they go out to the beaches and they see our attractions. You can tell somebody, but it's a lot easier if they just taste a bushwhacker to understand, what that really is. So it's important for us to bring travel writers and media into the community to experience it firsthand so they can go out and write about Escambia County and the Pensacola area. So again, really proud of the number of trips that we're able to host, and it's definitely direct correlation to the amount of interest we receive from folks who have the ability to provide that kind of media coverage. Our website, visitpensacola.com. We are certainly proud of this is our primary information distribution tool. Over 3.8 million website users, an increase of 34% over last year. And what's really important is that this is where we promote our partners, all our tourism-related partners in the county. 866,000 listings were accessed over the last year, up 29% over last year. And this is certainly important for visitors, but we also are very proud of how our residents are taking advantage of it. And when we've been rated by the readers of In Weekly as the top website for the last 6 years, certainly a tribute to the work that the team is doing. Just a little recap on some of our sales and services overview. So in addition to the advertising and the public relations and the marketing work we do, we can't do it without working with our local tourism partners. So we have 370 paid members, and we had over 2,000 assists where we're working with our partners throughout the year. We had 42,000 people come through the visitor information centers, and when it comes to sales, we generated 136 leads this last fiscal year. We're $33 million. But what's more importantly is this is a process that builds upon itself. We've been out selling since 2020, trying to bring events back into the Pensacola area. So we booked 112 leads for $111 million. Just wanted to spend a little time on our campaigns. Our overarching campaign is the Way to Beach. This is what we use in all of our tactics, whether it's digital, social, connected TV, broadcast, print, promotions, radio, and outdoor. The trackable results, not everything we do is trackable, but the trackable results generate over 265,000 room nights, 34,000 flights, and 164,000 travelers that we tracked from being exposed to this campaign. We do a number of campaigns, so some of our other subset, but larger campaigns. We do a social inclusion, generated more than 25,000 room nights, but it's a return of 30 times return on our investment. Direct flights is really important that we support the airport and what it does. We want to hold not only on the direct flights we have, but see those grow. Trackable results, more than 63,000 flights. 55% of those travelers are coming from Dallas, New York City, and Washington, D.C. We also, through our meetings and incentives conferences, have 17,000 users driven to the website, and from that 3,600 travelers coming to the area for that market segment. One thing I would like to share, sometimes we have unique things that happen in our community, and we get those questions of what kind of impact that has. So most recently, we had, whoops, one more slide, sorry, I'm out of sync. What's been important for us too is looking at how we can attract the winter visitors. So we had two campaigns for that. One is a campaign that runs November through January, and that generated more than 4,000 visitors. But we then added an early birds where we're really targeting them earlier in the year, August through October, and that generated even more room nights and flights as a result. We get back to that special event. Of course, we had a great snow experience here in January, and while it was weird, it was also very beautiful. And just on the social media from that, we gained 4,000 followers, we had 8.7 million impressions. Just incredible turnout for people who are interested to see what was happening in the Pensacola area because they were hearing it on the news. Our website visits were up 21%, and we had 8.1 million views of that video to the left just of a somewhat frozen Pensacola beach. But it also created a lot of, oh, there, I guess there it is. Now it's running. There we go. So that video had 8.1 million views. But we also had quite a bit of media coverage, 5,500 articles, 1,385 were unique, and then they get in syndication and they get sent out. But an ad value of something we could never attain of $78 billion based on that worldwide coverage of our snow event here in Northwest Florida. And just as we look forward to what's next. We're entering into the event season. So we just had Pensacon, who had a successful weekend. Mardi Gras is next weekend, as well as Foiling Week Pensacola. And these are events that we have an involvement in through our staff. We're surveying a number of these events as well through Downs and St. Germain. And then finally followed by the Sun Belt Conference Basketball Championship, where we'll have 28 basketball teams, plus the bands and the spirit teams and the fans and family and alumni. And that starts March 5th through the 11th. And that's just through the first week of March. So it's going to be a busy next 3 weeks. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Darren. Any questions, comments, council members?
I have
Yes,
one, just
Jason.
kind of a technical question. When we're talking about web conversions, Darren, what step do you qualify a conversion?
Actually, there's a number of actions that qualify as a conversion. So if someone comes in and like requests a newsletter, that would be considered a conversion. If they click into the second page of the website, that can be a conversion. So we have a list. There's a number of things that can be a conversion.
So they're asking for a response, essentially, or seeking additional information?
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Councilman?
So none of the TDT money was used to buy those bushwhackers for people, right?
That's absolutely right. We did not use any TDT money to buy bushwhackers. That's right.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you, Darren. Appreciate that for the update. Laura, I didn't know if you had anything you wanted to present. Pensacola Sports? Don't feel obligated? No? All right. Thank you. And Ace, don't know if you guys have anything to report? Not? Nope. All right. Any questions from council members about any of the outside agencies? Any questions for those agencies? I just want to say, good work. Thank you for saying that. Good work to everyone. Those reports are great. We appreciate all the work you're doing. And if there are no other questions for any of the outside agencies, we will move on to closing remarks, where just like to have members of the council just have any type of closing remarks they wish to have. And we'll start with you, Commissioner. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to start by saying, as a former Marine,
We'll start with you, Jason.
I honor also the General Chappie James Memorial Plaza, and I want to see this done. I echo Major Dosev's sentiment that the most honorable in our society are those that are willing to raise their right hand and defend our culture and our homeland. Unfortunately, this is not, in my opinion, the right source for the funding, but I'm certain that this community can rally behind this initiative and find the right bank for the money. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Well, since you started, we'll start on that end. Mr. Mullinex, do you have any closing remarks? No? Well, thank you. All right. Councilwoman?
Only that is always very difficult to vote against anything veteran within this, because it is such an important part of this community. And once again, I also would like to support that. I would like to see this come to fruition just through the proper source.
Thank you. Councilman Bear?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I agree with my colleague and Mr. Nicholson, so I don't have to repeat that. But I just wanted to say it would be helpful for me. I know we do like half a ream of paper every time we print for this. If we had an agenda that was online or that was emailed to us that had all of the components to it, it would be helpful so that we could, for those of us that don't want to use all this paper, that we can just do it here. And it's very difficult to keep track as we get emails with different things in them. And like some of the policies and procedures types things, I didn't have one of the things that you had over there. So I'd just like to see a package, kind of like what we do for our agendas and council, and I think county does it as well. It'd be helpful for me. Thank you.
We'll send you the instructions, but they are on the county website under the calendar. There's the agenda, and then there's another little tab on there that is the packet, the backup packet, and all this this plus other stuff that we didn't print was on there. But Danielle, and the next time we'll send out instructions on where to find that. Thank you.
Just want to say I appreciate everybody and keep working hard to bring events to Pensacola.
Thank you. Shirley, go ahead.
I concur. I want to say thank you to the agencies. It's obvious that everybody's working hard to make great use of the money, so we appreciate it.
Thank you. Mr. Reeves?
Well, I just want to thank everybody for the support they gave me tonight. But I do want to say that whether we gave the monument 750 or a million, personally, I don't have a dog in that fight other than the guy's a hero. And when this first came to this board, you, Mr. Chairman, insisted on Attorney General's opinion, and to me that was, it's just been delayed and fooled around with. So I think we ought to either set it or forget it. It just keeps coming back and it keeps coming back. So whether we did the 750 or whether we did the million or we did zero, which is what we did, I just want to see what the county commission does, because you can't have the collection of tourism dollars without having us. But if all we're going to do is talk about it, and then the commission can do whatever they want to do, then to me, we waste an awful lot of time. And in that regard, I would like to suggest that you just consider that we put public forum at the end of the meeting rather than make these people who come here regularly wait through that would be one thing. And maybe we put the most important things first. I mean, you put the agenda together, but I just think that most everybody else has the forum at the end of and maybe by the time you get there, they've given up and left too, you know? So I just, for your consideration. But I am anxious to see what happens on Thursday. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner?
Thank you, guys. I really do appreciate everyone that took the time to put together the information that we reviewed. My husband's an Army veteran as well, so making sure that we honor that part of the American culture is also very important to me. And maybe the Haas study will come back with additional information that we'll be able to act on as well. So looking forward to being able to review that. And just thank you guys for a very collaborative meeting. I appreciate everyone's comments and input, and it was great to be a part of it for the first time. So thank you.
Thank you. And in closing, first let me say, we did this great introduction of you at the last meeting, but you weren't here, so I apologize I didn't reintroduce you, but welcome to this council as well. We appreciate your willingness to serve, so thank you. Yeah, and I also, just a reminder, next week is Foiling Week. We supported that. And Tim, thank you very much for all the work that you're doing, working with Luca on that project. It's really exciting, and we're grateful you're doing it. Thank you to everyone, council, staff, our council, staff, everyone who's, and all the outside agencies and everyone here today, all the work that you're doing to help keep this going and grow our tourism. Welcome again to our new members. There's 4 on that end and 1 on this end, mostly all new. So welcome. And congratulations, Jason, on being the new vice chair. Now I'm going to start missing meetings, and you get to chair these. But with that, I will leave it. I will call this meeting adjourned. Thank you.